This is one of the most overlooked places to find bass, and it works for me in just about any condition, in any season. 45-degree banks are bass magnets, and here's why. Number one is bass have easy access to deeper water. Notice I didn't say deep, but deeper water. They do not have to move that far horizontally to be able to really gain some depth vertically, both down or up. And when you've got situations where the weather is changing, which seems like constantly, right? 45-degree banks are a great place to look because you can hit that entire water column without backing way off the bank. And for bank anglers, this is dynamite. You don't have to make those super long casts to cover that water column. Number two is the ends of 45-degree banks, where they transition to something else, are very high percentage places. Those transitions could be up into a flat, and oftentimes there's a very distinct structure or cover change right there at the ends of those 45-degree banks as well. So you've really got a high percentage area that you can check. Number three, if you have vegetation in your lake, the bottom of that weed line on these 45-degree banks is another high percentage place, and you don't have to be that far off of the shoreline to be able to hit that entire weed bed from the inside edge to the outside edge. And once again, in the extreme temperatures or in the extreme heat of the summer, that bottom weed edge on a 45-degree bank is usually a place that you can find a better quality fish. Now, what are some lures and presentations that I rely on when fishing 45-degree banks? Well, it depends on the angle. We just had a video not too long ago on angles. Well, the same type of situation applies here, but I'm going to break it down into perpendicular presentations and parallel presentations, and that is in regards to the shoreline. If I'm fishing parallel to these 45-degree banks, I like to have those horizontally presented lures. These are going to be things like your crankbaits and your swim jigs and your topwaters, your swim baits, glide baits, those types of things. And I will start up pretty shallow and then keep making parallel casts progressively farther and farther out away from the shoreline. These are great ways to locate fish and cover a 45-degree bank pretty quickly, especially if you've got an area on the part of a lake or a river that you're fishing, and this 45-degree bank seems to go on for hundreds and hundreds of yards. Now, when I'm fishing perpendicular to the shoreline on these 45-degree banks, this is where I'm going to use things like my drop shot rigs, jigs, Texas rigs, Tokyo rigs. I'll even use a Carolina rig in this type of situation. But it's really important if you're in a boat to keep feeding slack line. So as that lure is coming towards you, you maintain bottom contact and you don't start to swing your way back to the boat and miss the bottom. Shore anglers, you have a great situation here. You can get out there to the edge of that bank, that 45-degree bank, and work your way back up. And here's what I really love about fishing these and why you should fish them every time you see one, is once you figure out the depth that they're holding at, where you start to get some bites, it seems to me in my experience that this type of shoreline, this 45-degree bank coming off of the shoreline, is something that is easily transferable across the body of water. So if you've got a bluebird day and high pressure situation and you find fish holding at, let's say, 15 feet or 20 feet on this 45-degree bank, I can then apply that to other places on the lake. It just is a very consistent and almost in some situations predictable pattern for me to be able to fish and apply elsewhere. And I talked about angles a little bit earlier. If you want to watch that video on how angles can make a huge difference in our crankbait fishing, go ahead and check this one out right here. And make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.